The events of March 2026 were not sudden, but rather the culmination of decades of simmering hostility and unresolved grievances between Iran, the United States, and Israel. The roots of this conflict run deep, shaped by history, ideology, and a relentless struggle for power and influence in the Middle East. Since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, when Iran overthrew its monarchy and established a theocratic regime, relations with the West and Israel have been marked by open conflict, diplomatic crises, and a persistent Cold War. The revolution not only transformed Iran internally, but also sent shockwaves throughout the region, setting the stage for decades of confrontation. In response to Iran's growing ambitions, the United States imposed wave after wave of crippling economic sanctions, aiming to isolate Tehran and curb its nuclear program. Meanwhile, Israel launched a series of covert operations targeting Iranian scientists and military assets, and carrying out airstrikes against Iranian positions in Syria and beyond. Iran, refusing to back down, retaliated through a network of proxy militias across the region. These groups targeted U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria, while Iran's own arsenal of missiles and drones threatened Israel directly, escalating tensions with each new attack. The cycle of provocation and retaliation kept the entire region on edge. Each incident risked spiraling into a wider conflict, with world leaders and diplomats scrambling to prevent a miscalculation that could ignite all-out war. The return of Donald Trump to the presidency in 2025 marked a turning point. Trump's administration adopted an even more hardline approach, vowing to intensify sanctions, increase military pressure, and end what he called appeasement of Iran. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a longtime hawk on Iran, found a willing partner in Trump. Together, they formed a united front, aligning both nations in a hawkish axis, determined to confront Iran with maximum pressure. Then, in late 2024, a pivotal moment arrived. A U.S. indictment revealed an Iranian plot to assassinate Trump on American soil. A brazen act that shocked the world and shattered any remaining illusions of restraint. This revelation was seen in Washington and Jerusalem as a direct act of war, erasing the last barriers to military action. The sense of urgency and danger escalated overnight as both nations began preparing for the possibility of open conflict. The incident convinced leaders in both capitals that Iran's regime could no longer be deterred or negotiated with. The calculus shifted from containment to confrontation, as military advisors and policymakers weighed their options. The stage was set for a campaign unlike any before, one that would draw in regional and global powers and threaten to reshape the Middle East for a generation. As the world watched with bated breath, the countdown to March 2026 began. The world braced for what would become a defining conflict in the Middle East, one whose consequences would be felt far beyond the region's borders. Early 2026 saw Iran erupt in mass protests met with brutal crackdowns by the regime's Basij militia. Thousands were killed, shocking the world and providing the US and Israel with justification for intervention. The Trump administration framed the conflict as a fight for Iranian freedom, rallying domestic and international support. US forces built up in the region, signaling preparations for a major campaign. In March, the US launched a precision strike, killing the IRGC unit leader behind the Trump assassination plot. This marked a clear escalation, demonstrating American resolve and capability. The opening salvo had been fired. A broader offensive was underway. The US-Israeli plan was built around a bold and controversial concept, a decapitation strike. The idea was to eliminate Iran's top leaders in one coordinated blow, aiming to paralyze the regime at its core and throw the country's power structure into disarray. This was not a conventional military campaign, but a targeted operation designed to strike at the very heart of Iran's leadership. The objective was never to occupy Iran or engage in a drawn-out ground war. Instead, the goal was to create chaos and confusion by surgically removing the supreme leader and his closest advisors. By decapitating the leadership, planners hoped to disrupt command and control, leaving the regime unable to respond effectively. Israeli Defense Minister Katz famously described the strategy as cutting off the octopus's head, not fighting every tentacle. In other words, rather than battling Iran's proxies and militias across the region, the focus was on striking the source of power itself. Years of painstaking intelligence gathering by both American and Israeli agencies made this possible. Surveillance, intercepted communications, and human sources allowed the Allies to map out leadership routines, security protocols, and hidden vulnerabilities. Advanced stealth aircraft including F-35s and B-2 bombers, equipped with bunker-busting munitions, gave the Allies the ability to strike deep inside heavily fortified compounds, places once thought untouchable. The list of targets was chillingly precise. Supreme Leader Khamenei, his likely successors such as Mojtaba Khamenei, and the most influential military and intelligence chiefs. Each was considered a pillar holding up the regime. Every strike was meticulously planned to remove a key figure, with the hope that the sudden loss of leadership would trigger a collapse from within, or at least sow enough confusion to prevent any organized resistance. The campaign relied on speed, precision, and the element of psychological shock. The intent was to overwhelm the regime before it could react, sending a message of vulnerability to both Iran's leaders and its people. Ruthless in its design, the strategy aimed to prevent any smooth transition of power. By targeting the entire chain of command, the Allies hoped to leave no clear successor, deepening the chaos. In the aftermath, the fate of the Islamic Republic and the future of the region now hung in the balance as the world watched to see what would emerge from the chaos. In the early hours of March 2026, the world watched as a meticulously coordinated air assault unfolded over Tehran. The target, a heavily fortified leadership compound at the heart of the Iranian capital, long considered impenetrable. The city, usually alive even at night, was eerily quiet as the operation began. Stealth jets, invisible to radar, sliced through the darkness and evaded Iranian air defenses with astonishing precision. Their mission was clear: strike the very buildings where Iran's top officials, including the supreme leader, were believed to be meeting in secret. Explosions erupted across the compound and nearby government buildings, sending shockwaves through the capital. The sudden violence plunged the regime into chaos, confusion, and panic, as no one knew who had survived. For hours, both Iranian and Allied sources remained silent. The lack of information only deepened the uncertainty, leaving citizens and the world anxiously awaiting any news. On March 4th, a U.S. official finally broke the silence, confirming that Supreme Leader Khamenei and several top commanders had been killed in the strike, a revelation that sent shockwaves through the region. The death of Khamenei was a political earthquake, shattering the regime's core and leaving millions in mourning. The streets of Tehran filled with disbelief and sorrow as the nation grappled with the loss of its most powerful figure. The U.S.-Israeli alliance had achieved what many thought impossible: the ultimate decapitation of Iran's leadership in a single, decisive blow. The operation showcased not only unprecedented military reach, but also the depth of intelligence and planning that had gone into every detail. It was a display of technological superiority and strategic coordination. Yet the aftermath was immediate and profound. Iran was left leaderless, its government in disarray, and the entire region teetering on the edge of further instability. The keystone of the regime was gone, leaving a vacuum at the very top of Iran's power structure. Around the globe, leaders and citizens alike watched in disbelief, waiting to see how the rest of Iran's political system would respond to this unprecedented crisis. The head of the octopus had been severed, but its arms still writhed, leaving the world to wonder what would come next. Khamenei's death triggered a relentless second phase. Surviving officials scrambled to restore order, with Ali Larijani emerging as de facto leader and the next target. Tehran became a city under siege, its elite forced underground, constantly moving to evade detection. Allied intelligence tracked leadership movements in near real time, sowing fear and paranoia. The regime's ability to govern or coordinate a response was crippled. Every noise, every face became a potential threat. The campaign aimed not just to kill leaders, but to paralyze the entire system. By keeping officials on the run, the Allies prevented any consolidation of power. The decapitation was ongoing, not a single event. Tehran became the epicenter of a new kind of warfare. On March 17th, Israeli intelligence located Ali Larijani in Tehran. An airstrike killed him, ending his brief tenure as Iran's leader. The same day, another strike eliminated Gholamreza Soleimani, head of the Basij militia, and Iran's intelligence minister. These coordinated assassinations dismantled both political and security leadership. The regime lost its most plausible successor and its chief enforcers. Iran's ability to suppress dissent collapsed. The campaign had shattered the leadership structure in just 2 weeks. The octopus was now blind and defenseless. The regime's collapse seemed imminent. The campaign was driven by a determined circle in Washington and Jerusalem. President Trump saw the operation as both strategic necessity and personal vindication, referencing the plot against his life. Defense Secretary Hegseth and General Kane championed the decapitation strategy, avoiding a ground war. Hegseth framed the conflict as liberating Iranians from tyranny. In Israel, Netanyahu saw the strikes as the fulfillment of decades of warnings about Iran. He positioned Israel as a liberator, not a conqueror, aiming to empower the Iranian people. Defense Minister Katz's octopus metaphor resonated with the public, justifying the campaign as a defensive necessity. Together, US and Israeli leaders believed the risks were outweighed by the dangers of inaction. The strikes left Iran in chaos, its centralized power structure shattered. With top leaders dead, no clear authority remained. Bureaucrats and military officers were paralyzed, unsure of their next move. The public reaction was divided. Hardliners called for vengeance, while many celebrated the end of repression. Protests swelled as security forces, leaderless and demoralized, hesitated or refused to act. Factions within the IRGC and army clashed or defected, fueling unrest. The regime's aura of invincibility was gone. Basic services broke down, and the economy ground to a halt. US officials noted a dramatic drop in Iranian missile and drone attacks. The campaign had achieved its goal. The regime's command structure was in ruins. Iran teetered on the brink of collapse. The campaign sent shockwaves worldwide, redrawing the Middle East's geopolitical map. Allies in Europe voiced concern, while Russia and China condemned the strikes but limited their response to diplomacy. Regional rivals like Saudi Arabia quietly welcomed Iran's downfall. Oil prices soared as the Strait of Hormuz was disrupted, impacting economies globally. The operation set a new precedent: regime change by air power alone. It raised questions about sovereignty, the laws of war, and the future of conflict. For authoritarian regimes, it was a chilling warning. For military planners, a new playbook. Iran's future, and the region's, remains dangerously uncertain. The world watches, wondering if this is a new dawn or the start of deeper chaos.